Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Football Talk from the Yorkshire Post, where we'll be discussing some of the latest talking points from the world of football with members of our football writing team. On this week's episode, we're joined by Chief Football Writer for the Yorkshire Post, Stuart Rayner, and Football Writer for the Yorkshire Post, Liam Wobschall, to discuss all of the latest developments affecting our local clubs. Don't forget you can keep up to date with all the football news across Yorkshire and beyond by logging on to our website at yp.sport@nationalworld.com, as well as checking out our various Twitter feeds, the main one being at YP Sport. If you search for Yorkshire Post Sport, Yorkshire Post Football, or even Sheffield Sport on Facebook, you can find us there as well. And if you have any questions for our writers, you can get in touch using those various Twitter or Facebook pages, or email us directly with the subject matter as Football Talk Podcast at yp.sport@nationalworld.com.
YorkshirePost.co.uk.
As mentioned earlier in the intro, this week we're joined by Chief Football Writer for the Yorkshire Post, Stuart Rayner, and Football Writer for the Yorkshire Post, Liam Wobschall. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Right, this week we saw the final round of games in the Championship and the start of League 1 and League 2 playoffs. In the Premier League, we witnessed another disappointing result for already relegated Sheffield United when they went down to struggling Nottingham Forest. In doing so, they conceded their 100th goal of the season, and with 2 games still to play, it's likely that they'll set a new Premier League record. Another team now confirmed to be playing in a lower division next season are Huddersfield Town. Knowing only a miracle would save them, they went down 2-1 to Ipswich Town, a result which also meant that Leeds United would have to rely on the playoff route if they are to join the Tractor Boys in the Premier League. Elsewhere in the Championship, Hull City's playoff hopes were ended when they went down 1-0 at Plymouth Argyle. This was the Tigers' first defeat in 7 games and meant they finished just 1 place and 3 points outside the playoffs. And to many people's surprise, this was then followed by the announcement that Liam Rosenior will be leaving the club. Now, Liam, although this was a disappointing end, do you think that this was the right decision, and how do you see things moving forward next season?
No, 100% not. I mean, myself and Stuart have covered a lot of things in football, and nothing really does surprise you. The emotions aren't so much surprise at what's happened. It's just massive sort of disappointment and disillusionment, really. I mean, you have to consider where Hull were when he took over in the autumn of 2022. They were a club who had no identity. They'd lost the mojo. They were on the cusp of a relegation battle if things didn't improve. The senior steadied the ship there first and foremost, and kept them up with relatively few alarms, really. And he's built a side, okay, not without failings, but a really vibrant, attractive, easy on the eye side. I mean, in the previous home game, I mean, Stuart's seen a lot more of Hull than I have, but I obviously watched the home game against Ipswich, and it was everything good about Hull City. Okay, one or two imperfections, but magnificent advert for the Championship. He was building something good there. I just sort of look at it and I think, well, if some of the clubs going on the right path in the Championship, say Coventry, if Ipswich had just missed out on the playoffs, or Middlesbrough, would they have sat their manager after such a season? I don't think. Never in a million years, given the good sense and the acumen in the boardroom. Desperately disappointing for Liam and for Hull City as well. I mean, another bright young manager. He's 39 years old. He's been talked up rightly. He was shortlisted for the Manager of the Year award in April. His size play attractive football the way that most people think that football should be played. A lot of Premier League clubs were trusting him with their up-and-coming young players. Okay, they just missed out, but they finished 7th, and they've got a lot to look forward to, in my opinion. And it's just a case of probably ripping it up and starting again. And you just wonder what some of the players think at Hull who've grown under a senior. The likes of Jacob Greaves, the Regan Slaters, people like Morton and Delap who came to Hull and had a had a great time under the tutelage of Rosenior. I think it's fair to say that they won't be coming back now. That's for sure. And just desperately disappointing and needless, really. But I suppose it's modern football and it sums it up in some regard. But I think my main emotion, what Stuart thinks, is just real sadness, really.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. I mean, Hull's owners have always made it plain that they were impatient, but they're quite honest about that. So, as Leon says, it's not that much of a surprise, but it is a massive disappointment. I mean, I think Hull were, entitled to set their target for the playoffs this season, and particularly after the investment they made in January. And in that respect, you'd have to say that they failed, and that Liam Rosenior failed, and part of that equation was down to him. He didn't find the right solutions, whether it be recruitment, tactical selection, or whatever, to overcome the problem of Liam Delap's injury. But look, managers do fail. Jurgen Klopp's going to fail this season, and if he wasn't retiring, Liverpool wouldn't be sacking him for it. There's only one team wins each trophy. Hull City were on a really good track. They've got a young manager and a young team, and you learn from your mistakes. And Rosenior will learn from his mistakes, but now some other club's going to get the benefit of that learning, not him. They only missed out on the playoffs by 3 points. I think it will probably be a weaker championship next season. Yeah. They were perfectly placed if they kept that manager in place to kick on and go on better next season. And as Leon has said, now it's kind of start again time almost. I mean, that squad was anyway probably going to be broken up to a degree because of financial fair play, but this really accelerates it and exaggerates it, and it just feels like a club that had been making big strides forward has voluntarily taken a big stride back now. And as I say, if we'd have been talking 2 days ago, you'd have been saying you'd really fancy Hull to be in the mix next season. Now we're not so sure. We're waiting to see who the new manager's going to be. And I say, Rosenior had his faults, of course he did. Every manager does. But there's not many better managers out there. And, when you whittle it down to managers who are prepared to work in the Championship, happy to work in England, to work at Hull, blah, 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 it's going to be a very short list of managers who will actually be an upgrade on Liam Rosenior. So I agree totally with Leon. It's a depressing move more than anything else. That, we've had this talented young manager on the patch who just needed a bit of time. And again, as Leon said, you just look at the context of the progress he's made. You just wanted to see him get the opportunity to continue that. And, fair enough, if next season he didn't learn the lessons of this season, then you've got a decision to make. But I think the man's certainly earned the chance to do that, and I think it just came out of the blue, really, and was really, I think, disappointing for people who love football more than anything else.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, you look at some clubs who've grown sort of incrementally, and you could say, Coventry, say Luton, clubs on an upward keel. Ipswich have done it a little bit quicker. You could bracket Hull in. I think it's fair to bracket Hull in those sort of clubs, and they finished 15th last season. Was it 7th this year? Every chance, as Stuart's rightly said, okay, there'll be one or two changes, but given the platform that Rosenior built, and he spoke after the match at Plymouth about putting Hull back on the map, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Stuart's right to say as well, I don't think the Championship will be quite as strong next season, and every chance for Hull to have a strong season next season. If it wasn't going well midships, then there's more of a justification for the argument of replacing him. But they've got a hell of a lot more for me going for them than what that wasn't going for them. And someone's going to have to come in and perhaps build a dressing room again. And people talk about cultures, this, that, and the other, but it's just a decision where it's almost like it's meaningless, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Ilicali just people talk about these buzzwords. He just said, "Well, you finished 7th. That's it. You got to go." And it's so disappointing for Rosenior. He's grown something there, hasn't he, over the best part of 18 months?
Yeah.
And it's just been tossed away. So, yeah, I think the overwhelming word is disappointment. But I suppose such is the modern world. We'll now get all sorts of managers linked with Hull. Probably a few exotic names from the continent. Plenty of modern fans will just jump on that straight away. But I just think it was a sad day for football. But unfortunately, it's the modern way, isn't it?
And I think there's another way you've got to look at the championship table nowadays. Yeah, Hull was 7th. They were second for teams without parachute payments, which had such a big skewing effect. So to say you were the best team bar Kieran McKenna's Ipswich Town not to receive parachute payments, that suddenly puts things in a much more positive light, doesn't it? And yeah, it just felt like they were doing things the right way, and they've just shot themselves in the foot here. And it might work out. They might pluck a manager from nowhere who turns out to be even better. But it just feels like something has been lost. When you've got somebody there who has a genuine affinity with the club, who has a real plan about how to take things forward, a real way of playing. Yeah, it's not to absolutely everybody's tastes, but it's never going to be.
But he's a young manager. He's not going to be perfect.
That's the point.
The best chairman back bright young managers, and
absolutely,
he surely deserved that, didn't he?
Yeah, and his replacement isn't going to be perfect either, because you don't get perfect managers at any level. You certainly don't get them coming to the Championship. That's the reality. So you've got to ride the disappointments and just be more mature about it than they have been.
Yeah. You wonder what we mentioned. Say Jacob Rees for the sake of argument. What's he going to think now? He's a Hull lad. It's his club. He'll have had a strong affinity and respect for Liam Rosenior. There'll be plenty of others too. Yeah. What are they going to think about this? It's not just about the Hull supporters as well. They've given everything over the best part of nine months. They've just missed out, but it's been a good, vibrant and healthy story. And then a couple of days after the end of the season, that's that. As if it didn't really mean anything, and that's the other thing that's so disappointing. I can't really get my head around.
Yeah. And not just Jacob Rees as well. The next manager they pick the phone up to, what's he going to think? If he's going to look at that and think, well, I'm going to be sacked if I miss the playoffs by 3 points. Maybe he might look elsewhere, and it all sort of adds to the mood around a club, and unless they get an appointment that really excites people, it could be a difficult start to next season. Just because that I mean, you can't say the season's ended with a real feel-good factor, obviously, because they've missed the playoffs. But it does feel like the mood will be dampened considerably.
And you think, mentioned there, if you're a Man City, you've got a good young player, you want to loan him out to the Championship for a year, Liverpool or whoever. Rosenior at Hull, you think, they just missed out on the playoffs, but they play a great style of football. Yeah, players there have grown and raised the profile. I will send him there. But see, that's another factor. That's all gone. Whoever comes in, they'll have to build more relationships again with these top clubs, and that's another consideration and. Another reason why I find it pretty baffling. Yeah,
I mean, now you'd be looking to Middlesbrough, to Sheffield Wednesday, if they keep Danny Rohl. You're going to be looking to clubs like that instead to place your players at.
Yeah. And now we also saw Sheffield Wednesday secure their Championship status with a comfortable 2-0 win at the Stadium of Light. After their dreadful start to the season with only one win in the first 19 games, Danny Rohl has certainly had a positive impact, particularly in the last third of the season. Now, Stuart, what were your thoughts on the game? And seeing as you made the comment with regards to how next season's division is going to look like, how do you see the Owls making more progress next season?
Well, I mean, that is a club in an extremely good position. Yeah. What we're waiting to see is what they do in the next couple of weeks, because we know what things are like at Sheffield Wednesday. There's the potential there to really take off. There's the potential there for it to go badly if they're not able to keep Danny Rohl. So we wait and see. But as for how things are at the moment, I mean, it was almost an unnatural final day of the season for me at the Stadium of Light, seeing a team really in the squeaky bum part of the division, take a quick 2-0 lead and just control the game. You know, it was really quite comfortable. I mean, in fairness, a lot of that was down to how poor Sunderland were and how low their morale was on the day. But nevertheless, you know, Sheffield Wednesday really finished the season strongly. You know, all the things we've been talking about in terms of a young manager, with a plan, with an identity. They've got all of these things at the moment. I say they are going to be an attractive place for clubs to send their loan signings, and that's a massive deal in the Championship, particularly when you haven't got the parachute payments. If you can get, you know, loan players of the quality of Tyler Morton, Fabio Carvalho, you know, players like that. If Sheffield Wednesday can attract some of these players, I mean, they can definitely be playoff contenders. You know, if you look at where the league table starts, if you start it in December, which is when Rohl really got his feet under the table, it's been playoff form. It's been top six form. So they can definitely look with real excitement to next season. But it is all going to hang on. Can they persuade Danny Rohl that they're going to really back him? Not just in terms of finance, but in terms of, you know, the changes he wants making in the club. You know, Bannon made a very telling comment about, you know, this is not a Danny Rohl team at the moment. He's having to make compromises, which, you know, Liam and I both praised him for in the last few weeks for having the foresight to do that. And incidentally, that's one of the things that Liam Rosenior will have to learn. Yeah. But nevertheless, next season, if Danny Rohl is still in charge, and if he gets his way, we'll see a sort of purer Danny Rohl team, a team playing more the way he wants to be. But it just all hangs on that if. You know, Rohl was very reticent to say anything about his future after the game. There's clearly some big talks need to be made. If you're a Sheffield Wednesday fan, you just got to keep your fingers crossed that his mind isn't already made up, you know, after some of the disappointments he had in the January transfer window and just generally. But it really could go either way for Sheffield Wednesday. You could really see them being on the up and up, but you just know they've got this habit of shooting themselves in the foot when things are going well, and you just pray that that's not going to happen this time. Yeah.
It's just over to the chairman, isn't it? Basically,
it is, yeah.
And you know, and if he messes this one up, I don't think the Sheffield Wednesday fans really won't forgive him. You look at them; look at where they are in terms of being in a good place, and you know, probably back to what they were in, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, weren't they? When Carvalho first came in, and every chance if recruitment's sharp and Rohl gets what he wants, that they can be one of those contenders next season. They've got a huge managerial asset on their hands, haven't they?
Yeah.
If you did leave Sheffield Wednesday, there'd be a huge queue of clubs that'd be interested. I mean, Sunderland would certainly be one.
Absolutely, yeah.
To plenty of reports. Just give the guy what he wants. You know, even if it means Chansiri having to go into the background a little bit and just cede a little bit to him. You know, he's talking about Sheffield Wednesday's biggest assets, players. Rohl's their biggest asset, isn't he? Clearly,
easily, yeah.
You know, he's an excellent coach. He's got a tune out of a bunch of, wouldn't say average players, you know, decent Championship players, and he clearly the next step will be building something really truly in his own image. And just give him the keys for me, and it'd just be such a desperate shame if Sheffield Wednesday messed this one up. You never second guess Chansiri, do you? But I just think it'd just be reprehensible, wouldn't it? After giving what he's achieved, one of the stories of football in the season. You know, just think where they were. They didn't win until the end of October. Was it 3 points from the first 10, 11 games?
13, I think it stretched to in the end. Yeah.
Absolutely staggering what he's done. And, you know, if he can be persuaded that he thinks he can write the next chapter at Sheffield Wednesday, just give him all the backing he needs. And, you know, further down the line, if Chansiri does, you know, if he's wanting to sell it and he does sell it, there'll be a successful Sheffield Wednesday with Rohl there and managing to, you know, perhaps progress, get in the playoffs. You'll be able to get a bit more money, won't you, as well? But I just hope that common sense prevails and he can get all the backing that he needs, and all the questions that he wants answering, getting the answers that he requires.
Yeah, and I think that is the case. It's all the backing. It's not all the money. You know, I think it's more. Obviously, he'll want a decent budget. Of course, he will. But I think it's as much about, you know, control, about, you know, infrastructure, about things like that. You know, I think he'll be more focused on the type of player he can get, i.e., someone who can play his style of football, almost than the quality. Obviously, you want the quality too, but making players better, that's his job. He needs those raw materials in the first place, you know. As I say, hopefully, a lot of that quality will come in the loan market. You know, more signings like James Beadle, and like I said, you know, the top caliber of player that Hull got. But I think more than anything else, Danny Rohl needs to trust that what Chansiri says he will deliver on. That's the big thing. You know, if I was advising Danny Rohl, then now that would be what I was saying. It's not so much the words that Chansiri's saying. It's do you believe he'll follow through on them, and say that might be the difficult part of the equation. But in Sheffield Wednesday's favour, you can tell Danny Rohl loves being there. You know, you could see how he does it every week, but you could see how he was interacting with the fans after the game. You know, first thing he did, which didn't go down too well, was announcing the press conference, everyone round to Hillsborough for a massive party. So I think a few people behind the scenes were very quick to, dampen that down when they're a bit worried about that. But that connection is there. So they are starting from a good place in that point. As Leon says, everything boils down to the chairman and that relationship.
Yeah,
I think everyone can see there's surely a few more chapters to write there.
Yes,
if things go well. You know, this was stage one, a very important accomplishment, and he deserves patting on the back for that. But he certainly wouldn't have come for Sheffield Wednesday just for this, would he? No. When he looked at the brochure, he'll have been looking further forward. They've got that opportunity now if things fall into place, and he gets the reassurances he wants. Just over to Mr. Chansiri not to waste it.
And if he were to walk, obviously there'd be a lot of angry Sheffield Wednesday fans. But that's football reaping what it sows. After what we've just talked about, how can you expect anyone to be loyal in that sort of environment? And that's the knock-on effect of all these decisions, and that's why it makes Leon and I so miserable to see that happen. You know, it creates an atmosphere of mistrust and disloyalty, and it will be really nice to see Danny Rohl say, you know, you've given me my chance. I owe it to you to give you another season and kick on. But, you know, you're living in a fairy tale land if you think he's just going to this, you know, shark-infested atmosphere that managers work in.
Then there's another one. If he did happen to leave, what would the whole players think? What would the Sheffield Wednesday players think?
Well, a lot of them would think I'm out of contract. Bye-bye.
Well, yeah, but it's...
So you're in real trouble then. You know, you're really having to start again.
Another horrendous summer, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah.
You know, you look at them last season, they actually got promoted at the end of spring. Everything was set up, and, you know, disastrous summer set the tone. Okay. You know, if one fan base who doesn't deserve that, it's Sheffield Wednesday after what happened last season.
And the playoffs have already begun, and Barnsley left themselves with a huge hill to climb after losing the semi-final first leg 3-1 to Bolton. The second leg resulted in Barnsley's exit, even though they won on the night. Bolton did enough to see the Tykes off. Now, Leon, did the Tykes do themselves justice this season?
Well, they went out with a bit of fight, didn't they? It was probably a little bit of a emblematic of how it's gone at this final sort of stage of the season. They just really have struggled for defensively, haven't they? I mean, I think if Stuart thinks I had to pinpoint a game where it all probably changed. Ironically, it was against Bolton. It was the home game that they had when they were going for automatic promotion at the start of March, 2-0 up, then managed to relinquish that lead, and Donovan Pines got injured as well. He was just showing signs of his form, big recruit in January. And they've just gone to pieces defensively, and it showed that. Stuart did the game on Friday. Coping with set pieces has been a massive problem. They conceded another goal from a set play against Bolton after taking the lead. 1-0 up, they got themselves back into the tie in true Barnsley fashion. Of late, they sort of blew it in a couple of minutes, and we're trailing. 32 goals have conceded in 15 games. I think they've kept 2 clean sheets since the end of November. You're not going to get promoted doing that, are you? With the best, best will in the world. Yeah, they show fight in the final half hour. Bolton got twitchy. It's good to see Sam Cosgrove, he's actually scored 3 goals in 2 playoff games. That's as many as he'd managed in the regular season after joining. So that was a big tick. They just lost momentum at the wrong time. I'm sure we'll probably mention Crewe a little bit later on. They looked a little bit similar, Stuart. They've hobbled into the playoffs, and I think there's a fair chance that they'll probably pay a price as well against Doncaster. And but I look at Barnsley, I think not quite made it this year, but I look at them and I think if they'd have gone up, key players would have left. I think in any case, expect Devante Cole to leave. Jordan Williams is up as well. Nicky Cadden, there's Herbie Kane. There's 3 or 4 loanees that will go back as well. You look at that side who stepped out against Bolton. 5 or 6 of them, I don't think they'll be here next season. If Barnsley did go up, I would have, best will in the world, I'd have feared for them next season, and it could have been. I think it could have been a rough old season. But I think just looking at them, I think the main sort of on-pitch issue has been that defensive aspect. You look at the players that they lost last summer, some huge players and personalities. Mads Anderson went, Liam Kitchen went for big money, Bobby Thomas as well. He was only on loan.
And Harry Eisted behind them.
So I think ultimately that has cost Barnsley in terms of just missing out this season. But like I say, I look at them, I think there's key players whose contracts are running down. I think they'll have left in the summer, come what may. So I'm not. Obviously, every fan wants their side to get promoted, but I would have feared for Barnsley if they had gone up, and maybe it's not the worst thing in the world what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, in reality nowadays, there's only so much clubs can do about players' contracts running down. But you do look at the other end of the field particularly and wonder if that cost them in the end as well, because there was a real tailing off the form. Cole obviously the most obvious one of them. A player who's out of contract and just seemed to lose his mojo. It might just have been him hitting bad form at a bad time. Sometimes you can read too much into these things, but it wasn't a great look that you come to the crunch time of the season, that playoff semi-final second leg, and you've got Cole on the bench, and Cosgrove proved himself to be a better option. It was it was the right decision to make, but it didn't reflect well there. Yeah, I mean, they're another club who just got to build some deeper foundations. As Leon says, that they were working on the fly a bit this season. Having to convert Jordan Williams to a centre back. They spent all that time sort of trying to acclimatise Donovan Pines, and then as Leon says, he gets injured pretty quickly. You're generally just integrating a lot of new players, and particularly if someone like Kane goes, that's a big area of the field they've got to look at again. They've obviously suffered through Luca Cannell's fitness and health problems, and Josh Benson's injury problems. It's cost them in midfield. They've just got to get their heads down and keep building. And this is the thing. They were moving in that direction. It wasn't going perfectly, far from it at the end of the season. But by changing the manager, that whole process has to start again. And they need to get it right, because it's a tough old division, League One, and it's more to the point, as Leon's pointed out, it's a really big step up to the Championship. So you don't want to scrape your way in. You don't want to go in underprepared. You want to go in with a real foundation to kick on, and I think that's what Barnsley have got to focus on. Yeah,
I just look at them and I think, are they really geared up to Championship football and to stabilise and build in the second tier of English football, which is a hugely competitive division these days. You've got some big city clubs in there. Yeah, look at Barnsley and the best will in the world. They're sort of raison d'etre to me. First and foremost, is getting players, developing them, and then selling them. They're ultimately they're just. It's not a criticism. I just think it's a fact. They're a selling club, aren't they?
Yeah,
they get players. They find a few rough diamonds. It's very data driven, and they've had success in it really, as well. To be fair, get them, have them for a couple of seasons, then ultimately sell them. But you just wonder in terms of the medium to longer term growth of the club, it doesn't smack me of how much do they really want to get in the Championship and consolidate. You just got to look at a club at the minute that it's about developing the players and selling and reinvesting and getting more in selling. That looks to be the modus operandi of that club ultimately.
Yeah, which is fine, as Leon says, but it's got to be towards the goal of generally building everything up. Like Luton's and Coventry's have done that. Yeah. That's the point. You feel. I think Leon agrees with me on this. You feel that it's kind of the means to the end to just be this factory of turning out footballers, rather than, as I say, towards the goal of actually ultimately pushing the club forward, establishing it as a Championship club.
Yeah, that just seems to be the passion behind the scenes of some, not to get Barnsley up there and to stay there. That just doesn't seem to be the right sort of motivation across the club to do that. That's my sort of issue with it.
But I do believe you can do both. I don't think the plan is against it. As Leon says, you just don't feel the hunger is there to establish themselves.
Yeah. And Doncaster Rovers began their League Two playoff campaign away at Crewe Alexandra and came away with a comfortable 2-0 victory. Now, Stuart, Donny are looking favourites for a trip to Wembley. How do you see them faring in the second leg?
Well, look, the playoffs are crazy. Yeah. I mean, Liam was at Bolton last night. He saw it laid out. We've all seen it.
Yeah.
But Doncaster just feel in such a good place mentally, and as Leon's already alluded to, Crewe don't. That as soon as Doncaster got 2-0 up, you just kind of felt they'll do this. They were 2-0 up 48 minutes into a 180-minute tie. That is not cast iron job done by any stretch of the imagination. But as I say, there's a confidence being built up, and I think the way they went into the playoffs was really significant. Not just the straight fact of unbeaten in 12 and they won 10 of them. The way they ended that run, they went behind for the first time in games 9 and 10 of that 10-match winning run. So that was a bit of a mental test for them. And then at Gillingham in the final game, went 2-0 up, had a man sent off, conceded twice in a quick time. They came through that too. So I think that's built a mental resilience and a confidence. And actually, in the first half hour at Crewe, they were pretty scrappy. They weren't really getting their foot on the ball as they wanted to. They were getting caused problems by the long throw, but they weren't flustered. You got the sense from them that, look, we'll get our chance and we'll take our chance, and that's exactly what happened. And as soon as they did, hit the crossbar quickly afterwards, then scored a second one early in the second half. You just feel that there's that mental toughness that they won't be comfortable by any means, but there won't be that panic if what happened to Bolton, for example, the other night were to happen. And more to the point, you feel like they probably won't get themselves into that situation just because of this confidence around them. And as Leo rightly pointed out, I mean, Crewe have lost 3 of their last 4 games. They're in the opposite place. Mm-hmm. They're a team where if they do concede, they're probably going to think, this is it. Whereas obviously their manager will be saying to them, all the time, Peterborough United for Sheffield Wednesday, Peterborough United for Sheffield Wednesday. That's the way they've got to think, but they're kind of fighting against their poor form, and Doncaster are in the opposite place.
They're just in a hell of a place, aren't they? And one thing's for sure, Grant McCann, his approach won't change. He's not going to he's not going to get complacent, and he's held everything together. It reminds me, I remember covering 2015-16. Barnsley won twice at. I'm going back to Barnsley again, but they won twice at Wembley in about 60 days. They won the Johnston Paint Trophy, and then they went on to get in the playoffs and they beat Millwall in the League One playoff final. That was a mad old season. They lost at Altrincham in the FA Cup. They went on a horrible run at about sort of November, December time. I think they must have lost 6 or 7 on the trot. But then they found the wings early in the new year, and the sort of momentum they garnered and the force, it just became irresistible. And they went all the way. Even though Lee Johnson actually left to go to Bristol City, I think it was the end of January after they got to the JPT final. But Paul Higginbottom stepped in and he grabbed the ball and they ran for the line, and it really does. I've not seen that much of Doncaster, but it just reminds me of that. I look at the side, and they've got a real strength in the spine of the team. Tom Anderson's come back into form with Richard Woods come in. That's been significant.
Yeah,
we've got Ironside down the middle. There's not many better leaders of the line in League Two, and I thought he was excellent on from what I saw of the game at Crewe. Young Craig, I think he's a great player, and I saw him earlier this season at Bradford, and I thought, I'm going to keep my eye on you, because I thought he looked a real good footballer, and he's destined for a decent career and bigger things. He looks to me like an old head on young shoulders.
Yeah.
Then they've obviously got people on down the sides. Molyneux and Adelican didn't have the best game the other day, but he's mercurial and he can come up with something, can't he? And I just think the stars are aligning for them. Hopefully they can finish off the job. It'd be great to see the keep mould full. I've mentioned a few times on this podcast in the last 3 or 4 seasons, Doncaster's form in the final third of seasons has just been horrible, hasn't it? The crowd have been an apathy there. The crowd not really engaging with the team. On Friday night they'll have a full stadium, and it'll be a rewind to better times. I remember years, I think it was 2007, 2007, 2008 season. They beat. I did the game. They played at Southend. I think they won. I think that was the second leg, and they won 5-0. I remember James Coppage scored a hat-trick, and that was a magnificent occasion. We all know what happened at the end of that season. They beat, obviously, Leeds in the playoff final to get promotion. And pleased for everyone at Doncaster. Pleased for Grant McCann and the supporters. And they've got hell of the chance, and they've just got such a belief and conviction. I don't think it's anything to do with arrogance at all.
No,
I think I think because they've been so low and they've sort of hit rock bottom, and they've just drawn upon the reservoirs of character. Players have come back. Everyone's bought into it. Obviously, talk of the league table in the canteen at the training ground, and that has been a clever psychological ploy, and everyone's sort of bought into that. And they've just got such genuine momentum there without it bordering on arrogance.
Yeah, and they mentioned Barnsley there, and it's probably no coincidence that they're very similar characters in charge, in Heckingbottom and Grant McCann.
Yeah.
Almost boringly so. Next game, don't get carried away. That's exactly what you need. Yeah. And you can just imagine, I talked to Matty Craig after the game and saying you could just imagine somebody getting too big for their boots at Cantley Park and then running into Richard Wood or Tom Anderson or Tommy Rowe. They'll soon be put right. There is a real feet on the ground mentality about them, and there was no. I mean, I think McCann said after the game, he said there was I forget his exact phrase. It was something along the lines of there was a satisfaction in the dressing room rather than people getting carried away. Which, as I say, is right when you're only 2-0 up. But you can imagine other groups of players getting a lot giddier about things, and that just isn't the Doncaster way. And I think as well, Leo's quite rightly mentioned some big performers for them, but they've got some people on the bench as well. People like Joseph Olowu, Tommy Rowe. They've got people to step in. I mean, we know we know that Tom Anderson and Richard Wood are practically in competition as to who can lose most blood and break most bones over the course of a season. And it will take a lot to push either of them off the field, but they've got Joe Alobu there if needs be. Harrison Biggins has been, nursed a bit of an injury, but what player to be able to bring on in Tommy Rowe. And, it's amazing when teams get snowballing like that. You'd be saying the exact opposite about Doncaster 3 or 4 months ago when injuries were really biting, but just everything just feels so positive and so good about them. I mean, I really hope I'm not here with egg on my face a week from now, but it just feels like an impregnable belief about that team right now, which you would really fancy them to finish the job in the semi-final and to give it a really good go at Wembley.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to him. It's interesting with McCann. He spoke before, hasn't he? These promotions have usually come from being a frontman, hasn't he, really? And
yes.
The reverse has applied here. Obviously, Doncaster, what was it, the end of January, they got beat 5-0 at home to Stockport, and then they went to Sutton and they were, looking over the shoulders, and they were third from bottom. He probably won't say it from what I know of Grant McCann. He probably won't say it, but I think inwardly, I look at them. The previous full season he had at Doncaster, they got to the playoffs, they got to the semi-final. I did the second leg against Charlton, and they were very unlucky there. They lost on penalties. And he won't say it, McCann, but I think he'll be inwardly driven there just to, get Doncaster to Wembley and finish the job, but just don't expect him to say it.
Yeah. And finally for this week, I look to Leon for his Player of the Week before turning to Stuart for the team that has caught his eye most this week. So, Leon, who have you gone for this week?
Well, I've jotted a few names down. There's quite a few candidates again. Mentioned Tom Anderson, Richard Wood, stitches and bandages and everything else. Luke Molyneux, another great crisp finish. He's really got his mojo back. Joe Ironside, he's a bit of a usual suspect at the minute. Look at Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously Stuart did the game at Sunderland. Barry Banners put the hand up. Liam Palmer, which is good to see. Someone who's obviously been a stalwart at that club. Paul Valentine as well. He's another player who's put his hand up at this stage of the season. To mention a couple of the Rotherham lads as well. Horrible season that they've had. They finished it by scoring 5 goals, which is terrific for them. I think I read a stat the other day. They hadn't scored on a Saturday at home since December the 9th, which, if that's not a damning indictment of what's happened there this season, absolutely nothing is. So good to see Jordan Hugill and Tommy's get a couple of goals and Rotherham sign off for the summer with a little crumb of comfort. Another name, Sam Cosgrove, just mentioned there, 3 goals in the playoffs. He had a bit of a difficult regular season. He was playing a bit of catch up fitness wise, not really seen the best of him. So he's offered a glimpse of things to come next season, and I think he'll be a big player for Barnsley, especially with Devante Cole likely to leave and McAtee going back to Luton and probably having a crack at the Championship next year. But I think I'm gonna go for young Craig at Doncaster. I like the cut of his jib. He looks such a nice footballer. He's always wanting the ball. He's busy and bright. Reminds me a little bit. I'm putting him on a bit of a pedestal here, and he's got a long way to go. Got a little bit of Richie Wellens about him, but obviously not quite at his levels. But a really nice footballer who's pleasing on the ice. So I'm going to go for the young lad.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he must be having a strange old experience because he joined in January, his first senior football.
Right.
Lost his first 2 games. The second one was that real low point at Stockport, and ever since he's only known, the good times, really. Yeah, he's gonna. I mean, it'd be interesting if Doncaster did go up, Stuart. The lad will go a level above. If he's at Tottenham, the next stage of his development, you would think it'd be League One. Yeah. Hopefully, that would be a no-brainer for him to come back. I'm sure Grant McCann would love to do that, but obviously they've got a couple of fences to clear yet, haven't they? Yeah, but a real quality player. I was really impressed with him at Crewe. So I'd wholeheartedly endorse that choice by Leon. Yeah, in terms of team of the week, I mean, a couple of couple of good performances, unfortunately, for teams where it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. Good to see, though. We always talk about professional pride and that sort of thing. Good to see Rotherham fans, Rotherham players giving the fans something long overdue back, and good to see Middlesbrough continuing their good end. Barnsley would have been in the mix were it not for that first leg, really. They just gave themselves too much to do, but at least they went out with a bit of pride. But I think, as I say, it was pretty comfortable for them on the day, which is a compliment to them in itself. But I think, all things considered, I'll go for Sheffield Wednesday as my team of this week. The way they finished the season, absolutely tremendous. Brilliant performance by Danny Rohl, but by no means just down to him. That good to see, as Leon's alluded to, that core of old stages who've been such a big factor for Sheffield Wednesday for such a long time. Bannon, Palmer, Windass, all coming to the fore, and other players like Paul Valentine. I'd say we've been a bit negative about Sheffield Wednesday in this podcast, just because we worry about which way it could go. But if it goes the right way, it could be really good for them. So just over to you, Mr. Chansiri. Make the right decisions. Give Danny Rohl the vision he wants to hear about, and it could be a really exciting time for Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah,
I think quickly his coaching team as well, Stuart.
Absolutely, yes.
Sorry to defer to them. Some shrewd appointments there, and Chris Bow being chief among them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
YorkshirePost.co.uk.
Many thanks to Stuart, Rayner and Leon Wobschall, who will doubtless join us again soon for more discussions on the Yorkshire football scene. But don't forget, you can keep up to date with all the football news across Yorkshire and beyond by logging on to our website at yp.sport@nationalworld.com, or if you search for Yorkshire Post Sport, Yorkshire Post Football or even Sheffield Sport on Facebook, you can find us there as well. If you have any questions for our writers, you can get in touch using those various Twitter or Facebook pages, or email us directly with the subject matter as Football Talk Podcast at yp.sport@nationalworld.com. As ever, many thanks for listening, look after yourselves, and bye for now.